Hey everyone, it's Charlie with Great Legal Marketing, and I've got a really cool subject to talk about today, and that is the subject of automation. And now the reason that automation excites me so much is because it is the best way to ensure a reliable source of income and revenue for your business. So automation is it's magic. It's the magic sauce that makes Benglass Law and Great Legal Marketing such successful businesses. Because essentially what we have done by the power, and I mean the power of automation, is we have created employees who don't get paid. And I'm going to tell you about Infusionsoft, which is our great employee that doesn't get paid, even though we actually pay it a little bit of money to run it every month, and how it makes us so much money by automating processes. So let's start with the whole idea of automation. Let's back up a little bit here and let's talk about what automation is and what it can actually mean for your practice. Well, essentially automation is taking your processes and making them function without anyone having to think about them. I like to compare automation with having a second brain that works even while I sleep. And the idea of my second brain, the automation, in this case we use the software Infusionsoft, is that this second brain allows me to take individual ideas that I know of out of my mind and put it over here into Infusionsoft and tell Infusionsoft the logic programming to run the system for me. I'll give you examples of these, so don't worry if it sounds a little bit complex at the moment, because really the great thing about automation is it actually takes the complex stuff and makes it very simple. That's really cool. So let's start with the first idea of what are the processes at your law practice. Now the processes don't just have to be marketing. They could be management process. They could and should be case workflow processes. Think about the things in your practice that are pseudo-automated. That is, you know how they're supposed to function and maybe you have some calendar reminders about them, but they're not actually being handled without your day-to-day paying attention to them. So every day you may be checking your calendar for a certain process, such as following up with a potential client with a phone call, and you have that scheduled down in your calendar somewhere, but if you miss it on your calendar, if you don't check your calendar that day, you may never get around to actually making that phone call. But it's a necessary process because you know, and we know, that by following up with those people who called you but didn't sign up for an appointment or sign up as clients at that time, we know that following up can turn them into clients. So that's a pretty important process, isn't it? Another example of a process within the law firm Benglass Law is in personal injury cases, we want to request medical records from medical providers. So we actually have an automated system that allows us to put into Infusionsoft in a person's record. So let's say John Smith has been injured in a car accident. We need to request John's medical records from his primary care physician. So we are going to request those records through John's contact page in Infusionsoft. We're going to go into his page, and then we're going to select a little note in there that says requested medical records. And what will happen is Infusionsoft actually reminds us 2 weeks later, have we received those medical records? We have an option to say yes or no. And if we say no, it will remind us another 2 weeks from then, have we received those medical records? And we can repeat this process with an unlimited number of medical providers. Very simple process. But think about if your calendar didn't look really crowded all the time. Think about your paralegal never having an excuse for not having followed up about medical records requests, because you know if they put it in Infusionsoft in your automation software, you know that the reminders went out at 2 weeks and another 2 weeks later. So there are no more excuses. That's how cool automation is. No more excuses. Everything is guaranteed to run as expected. Everything is mapped out nice and neatly. So think to yourself, what are my processes? The things that already have deadlines, that have specific due dates, that have something that more or less you have it maybe written down or at least up in your head. And then can they and should they be automated? 9 times out of 10, the answer to this question is yes, absolutely. And let me give you an example of some processes that you can automate. Needs automation. First off, your follow-up marketing definitely needs automation. And what I mean by this is, if someone orders a free report from your website, you should be delivering marketing to them over time without you having to think about it. You should not be carefully crafting each email that goes out to the door to every single person who has requested your free report. You should have created a set of, say, 3 different emails that are delivered 3 days in a row. And anytime someone requests a report, automatically, the next day they get email number 1, the next day email number 2, the next day email number 3. You haven't had to do anything because the whole process is, say it with me, automated. That's the magic of all of this. Case intake should be automated. The way that we automate case intake is we have a standard form within Infusionsoft that anyone can use to plug in the fields that we need to know. Was there a police report? Was the ambulance called? What were the injuries? All of this information is automatically put in so that way that record can then be delivered on to an attorney so that way a decision can be made about it. It doesn't require a bunch of shuffling of paper. It doesn't require a Post-it note getting lost here or there. Nothing falls through the cracks because it's all automated. It's all in one convenient automated place. Appointment scheduling. I'm going to show you how we do appointment scheduling at Benglass Law in just a moment so you can see an example of automation in play. Case workflow. We know that every single one of our personal injury cases follows a certain set of procedures, starting with the gathering of medical records, like I already mentioned, moving all the way down towards getting depositions taken care of, from filing the case to all those other little details handled in between. It's a step-by-step arrangement, with steps rarely ever being skipped. So what we can do in Infusionsoft is we can send someone to gather medical records. Once all the medical records are gathered, then we can go ahead and create the demand package right here. Once the demand package has been sent, and we mark it as having been sent, next we have reminders to make sure that we've received a notice back from the insurance company, giving a yes or no, starting the negotiations area. Then at a certain point, we can have an automated reminder of we have now gotten this far into the case, should we be filing suit? So we're reminding ourselves about all that. This means we don't have to map out this lengthy process on paper or in our Outlook calendar and risk forgetting about it. This stuff is too important. I mean, how many times in your law practice have you heard from someone who said, oh, I'm not sure if I sent that letter or not? The way to solve that is put it in a process like an Infusionsoft or any other automation software out there. I'm just telling you Infusionsoft because that's what we use and we know it works. Additionally, tracking of new leads. Being able to know where your leads are coming from is very, 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 I could continue with that word for quite a while, but I will sum it with valuable. It is very valuable to know where your leads actually come from. In Infusionsoft, one of the cool things that we can do is on our dashboard, I can see a report that says X number of people have ordered this particular free report in the last 30 days. So I can say in the last 30 days, we've had 25 people order our personal injury car accident guide, which means that we should expect between the next 1 to 6 months for it to yield this number of phone calls, and this number of phone calls can turn into this number of cases. All because I was able to track this one point of data. It's all done automatically for me. So let's go ahead and look at this appointment scheduling automation here. So when someone schedules an appointment with one of our attorneys, whether it be for long-term disability, medical malpractice, or personal injury, in Infusionsoft what happens is someone goes into that person's record. Let's go back to John Smith, for example, our car accident victim from earlier. They go into John Smith's record and they fill out a little form within his record that has just 2 simple things: the date of the appointment and the attorney the person will be meeting with. Very, very simple, just 2 fields for them to fill out. Then what automatically happens is a reminder sequence goes out, because we don't want no-shows at our appointments. We don't want to have wasted time for our attorneys. So we want to ensure that these potential clients, these John Smiths of the world, show up in the office. The best way to do that is to remind them that they actually have an appointment. So that way the day of the appointment, they're not all of a sudden scrambling and calling you 30 minutes after they were supposed to be at the office saying, oh, I forgot. So we have a reminder sequence that goes out with an email the day before saying, from the attorney. This is why we mark the attorney, by the way. So let's say they're meeting with James in our office. An email goes from James to the potential client saying, hey, we have a meeting tomorrow. I'm really excited to sit down and chat with you. if you have any questions or you need to reschedule, make sure to call our office before 5 p.m. today. Easy little email to send out. James, we can also have it to where there's a little video from James that's in there about car accident claims or something similar to give it an informational feel, like we're continuing to give the information to people. The possibilities there are endless. The cool part though is James wrote this email once, and that's it. That email never had to be written again. And actually, here's the really cool secret part is we can actually set it up to where it's the same email that's sent from any one of the attorneys, but just the name, the who's it from, and the person that it's to is changed. That's it. That's real automation right there. And then finally, if someone does call to say that they have to cancel or reschedule, we have a stop trigger because we have this day of reminder that goes out in the morning of their appointment from the attorney saying, hey, I'm preparing to meet with you today. Just wanted to remind you that I'll be seeing you today. Looking forward to it. Nice and simple. But if they cancel, we have a stop trigger that prevents that reminder from going out. That's important. That's an important lesson there when you're automating. Don't forget about what happens when someone decides to cancel the process with you. And then if someone reschedules, we can take it right back to the initial form and re-input this information. So that is the power of automation. It saves us time, it saves us money, it actually actively makes us money because of follow-up marketing, and it means that we don't have to have only the knowledge in people's minds to rely on because we built our second brain in Infusionsoft. So think about what you can use in your practice, what processes that you can transform into automated processes. If you want to get started just on paper by, say, creating a memo that says, here's how we do this, and then later put it into a software form, that's a great way to start. But the real trick here is make it so that way everyone knows exactly how things are going to function. Because that means that everyone is held to the same standard, and everyone has to be reliable and accountable to the process. So make sure you are using automation as much as possible in your practice. It will be such a valuable tool. All right, I'm Charley Mann, and thanks for watching. Okay, so if this is the kind of stuff that really interests you, this automation of processes and your marketing and your management and your case workflow, you have to go to the URL below to find out how you can become a Great Legal Marketing member with your first 2 months completely free. And the reason I want you to do this is because we talk about automation all the time with our Great Legal Marketing members, and we share insider sequences that we use at Ben Glass Law and sequences being used by some of our top level members to make them money and to save them time in their practices. So again, go to the URL below to get a new member kit shipped directly to you and to find out more about our 2 months free program known as our Test Drive program with Great Legal Marketing.